I'm pleased to introduce Joe White. He's a geologist with 5 years experience across several different fields, including exploration, open pit, and underground mining. He has worked primarily on narrow vein gold deposits, but also spent time both in lithium and iron ore. Joe's key focus since joining Datamine has been to roll out Studio Geo, Datamine new implicit modeling system, and involved in testing, documentation, and customer outreach. He also works as a part of the training and support team over several of our geological software packages. So, welcome, Joe.
Awesome. Thanks, Bruno, for that. I'm Joe, and my primary job over the last couple of months has been rolling out Datamine's new software package, Studio Geo. So you might have heard about it a couple of times in the past couple of years, but we've finally gotten to the stage where we've got a bit to show you, so we can get to know Studio Geo. Awesome. So the tagline to Studio Geo is basically streamline your geological interpretation. So as introduced by Bruno, my name's Joe White. So I'm currently a geology consultant for Datamine. I've been working there for a bit over 6 months now. It's been really enjoyable. But prior to that, I mainly worked in the underground environment as a production geo. Like I said, I've got experience in quite a few different fields. So I spent time in exploration in lithium and iron ore. But one of the things about it, throughout my whole career, I've been basically a user of one form or another of Datamine software. So predominantly RM. Probably like a lot of people here, but overall it's been a really good experience actually now being on the other side, not just as a user in a mining sense, but also being able to roll out a new software that I think is pretty exciting and pretty useful. So where does Studio Geo lie in the mining value chain? So obviously Studio Geo, it lies very firmly within the geology suite of softwares. If we look into it a little bit deeper, it's meant to bridge the gap between your data collection, your logging, maybe Studio Mapper, and then Studio RM, which is very much focused towards resource modeling. So what Studio Geo does is meant to kind of fill in that gap. So it's meant to be a bit more of a simplified and slimmed down version of RM with a specific focus on implicit modeling. So, why do we need Studio Geo? What's the problem that we currently have? So, we're all geologists here. So, as we know, geological interpretation is a key part of delimiting your resources. It can be a very important thing in all 3 stages, from exploration to resource development and production. One thing about modeling and interpretation is it can be a very time-intensive process. It's also very important, for furthering all other aspects of your geology. So, you can't have a accurate resource model without also having an accurate geology model. So, this means that any time saved in this, initial modeling can have a great productivity boost later on down the line. As we know through talking to customers, talking to you guys, often multiple different software products are currently used for this stage. You might decide to make your wireframes in one software package and then convert them to another, and then convert them to a Datamine format to do your resource modeling. So as we heard earlier before, one of the main focuses at the moment is trying to kind of get everybody onto the one system, so there is no longer any need for conversions, exporting, re-importing. So here we go. Introducing Studio Geo. So this is just a general layout of the Studio Geo window. So probably the first thing you'll notice is that it's got a very familiar user interface. It's basically, like I said, a bit of a slimmed down, more direct version of the RM and other studio products. The good thing about this is if it's a familiar user interface, it doesn't require a whole lot of learning. All the buttons, all the tools should be in the same position. Like I said, Studio Geo is one of the Studio core products. So it's the same platform, which means we have all the same file formats. So everything that is produced by Studio Geo can be saved as a .dm format. So if you do want to take it to another, Datamine software, there is no need to convert it. It's simply drag and drop. You could have it in the same file if you wanted to. Now, one of the key things that we have been working on is speeding up our implicit modeling workflow. So we have this dynamic modeling window, which is that little box to the left. So this has basically been made as a streamlined version of our implicit modeling tools. So the implicit modeling tools do exist in RM, but as has kind of been said before, RM is very much a sandbox program. You can do whatever you like with it, but there's no specific workflow. So this is meant to be streamlined and simplified. One of the things we have been aiming for is updating your wireframes with only a few clicks. We'll get into that later. I've got a video on kind of how the model creation works. And the last thing is many other useful tools found in other RM products are also in Geo. So obviously development is still ongoing. It's not a completely finished product. We have a product that we're testing, we're working with. Some of you might tomorrow get to see parts of it if you're part of the workshop. But in general, a lot of features in RM will also be included in Geo, including some of the more useful ones like macros, scripting is all going to be included. So this is a very simplified version of the model creation process in Studio Geo. So this is not an exhaustive or the way you're going to necessarily do things in practice, but this kind of gives you an idea of how the tools work, what it looks like. So I'll try to live commentate it. It might be a bit hard because it might be a bit quick, but let's see how it goes. So as you can see, we got some drill holes there. It's very basic, a major contact and 2 little intrusions. So the very first thing you do is come over to your dynamic modeling window and select your drill holes. So these drill holes have already been preloaded. You can just see that it's all loaded in there, ready to go. And there's a couple of options there that we can go into a bit more detail later. This allows you to select a proto model, so basically the boundary for your model, and you also need a topography. So it does need a topography to run. So that's your kind of input data there. It's all pretty easy peasy so far. Now from here you can also add things like boundary strings or boundary volumes, so you don't have to generate the model for the entire area all at once. Obviously if you've got big data sets, that wouldn't be too useful. So you can click on this add domain button, it brings this up. These are all attributes just off your drill holes table, and from here you can select your geology and just pull your geology into either stratigraphic or cross-cutting values. So you can see there, that's all loaded into the dynamic modeling window. Those arrow buttons are just basically your age relations, so which is older, which is younger. And from here, you just press the go button and then watch it run. So as this is running, you might see a couple of toolbars come up. It's basically going into each of those lithologies that I have loaded in there, and it's generating the shapes based on a set of rules. So there's little cog buttons that basically goes into all of the generation parameters and stuff, so it's all customizable. You can change everything, and at the end of the day it will basically create one large model with a bunch of smaller shapes that you can go on and turn on and off. So that's, again, the very, very basic model, but there you go. You can kind of see, I think, 3 intrusions and, two major rock types. And that's kind of the generic object you'll get out of there. And then from there, you've got separate objects for your intrusions, cross-cutting rock types. Here in the output bar will basically show you all of your generation parameters, so all of your options that you've selected. So this can be useful for validation. You can save this for later if you want, or you can compare. That's just a little thing that will show you what's wrong, error messages if you have any. And they're just a couple of the shapes that have been generated. So it's a fairly, streamlined system. That's basically what it's been made for. And at the end of the day, you will end up with a little model just like that. Oops. So I'll just draw your attention to a couple of the kind of features that we have as part of Studio Geo. So the first thing is a drill hole importer. So this is basically a simple tool to import and desurvey all of your drill hole files. For Studio Geo specifically, it's a really important part of the implicit modeling workflow. So you basically get your drill holes set up, and then they sit as part of your dynamic modeling and get run in the process with all of the other objects. So you probably know that this has been included in Studio RM 2.0 Plus. So it's there as well. If you haven't had a chance to use it, I know quite a few people still use Holes 3D. This is a very easy to use tool, really helpful, very visual. One of the really good things it can do is it can dynamically link to databases. So that means when you have changes in your drill hole data on your server, these will dynamically update if you have your drill hole importer set up. There is inbuilt validation tools if you do end up having validation issues in some of your data. Hopefully most of it would be cleaned up by now, but it will catch it, which is really useful. We have the ability to set scenarios, which are basically just templates. This is especially important if you do have a live link to your database. When it reruns, it'll basically use all the exact same options as you've previously used to run all the new holes. And for us in Studio Geo, it will allow the easy updating of the implicit wireframes with preset rules. So you set your rules up in this, you press the play button, it'll reload your drill holes and then recalculate your wireframes based off these new drill holes. So a couple of other useful little features that you guys might be interested in. So like I said, probably the main focus is the easy updating of your wireframes through the drill holes. So, the drill hole importer. You can create and add surfaces to your model as you go. So in the model that I just showed you there, we obviously had all of our, lithology set up, ready to go. There is options to, instead of running them all at once, you probably want to, flag something, tweak something a little bit, and then insert it later on. So we have easy ways to do that, buttons and drop downs. We can generate multiple models in a single click. So this is just referring to your regolith, your geology model, your alteration model. So you can either turn these on or off. Obviously, you probably don't want them all generating all the time, but the option's there if you like. One really cool thing we can do is apply offset faults to a single wireframe. So that's that top picture up there. So we've got a fault plane there, and it basically completely cuts one of our loads in half, but the other one is, stays flat. So you can selectively apply faults to certain wireframes. We can see the changes in volumes through successive model generations. So this is the bottom right. This is basically a validation tool that allows you to see, changes in your models. So in those first two pictures, they're very similar. You might have only made a few really slight changes, added a couple of extra samples, done some mapping. That third one is the same model. Maybe you've decided to lop off a whole bunch of your model, or do it only in a specific area. And as you can see, your rock volumes have changed. So obviously, if you're going through modeling a surface and then you've run your model and all of a sudden your rock volumes have dropped by 2/3, you're probably going to go want to check that and see what's up. And finally, it will also automatically create block models when running your models. So at the end of the day, what will happen is if you run a regolith, geology, and alteration model, it'll also generate a block model with all that data in it automatically. So, what is next? Obviously, the development is still ongoing. We're reaching a point where we'd like to start showing it to customers. We've started showing it to people already. And ideally, the rollout will happen sometime soon. But for now, we really are kind of focusing on improving the tools and the stability of Studio Geo. So for everybody in the room that's interested, now would be a great time to get your ideas developed and included in future releases. So if there's anything that you guys think might be really useful that other software packages don't do, you can pass that feedback on to me and I can pass it directly on to the developers and we can kind of work towards getting that included in future releases. At the moment, a lot of the time spent testing features. We've been getting feedback on the usability and layout of tools because obviously you don't want to be searching for stuff all the time. You want things to be in a logical, nice place with good naming conventions. And as has been talked about, we are really interested in getting all the integration with all the other studio products completely smoothed out. Now the approximate rollout dates for the beta version, so that's the version that you guys might be able to actually take and test, is Q1 2025. Now don't hold me to that. There have been a bit of pushback of that date in the past, so we're going to be running with that as much as we can, but we'll see what we can do. And yeah, if you are interested in being part of this process or would like to share some ideas with me or any of the other team members here, just let me know. I'll be walking around, this afternoon, the rest of today. And for all those coming to the workshop tomorrow, I will see you there and we can go into a bit more detail on some of the tools. So thank you for your time. Those are my contact details up there if you do want to give me feedback or share some, ideas. And Q&A time.
At the moment, we're using Leapfrog for wireframing and Datamine for estimation. And recently, we were trying to using implicit modeling to create the wireframes, but we were getting some volume differences between two softwares, especially when you go away from the intersections using same interval selection. So is there any, you're working on the compatibility between two different softwares?
So there will always be some slight differences. So we're not trying to be a complete, copy of Leapfrog. There will be some slight differences. So the developers have been working pretty hard on the implicit modeling tools in general. So like I said, a lot of those implicit modeling tools do exist currently in RM. And Studio Geo is just much more of a workflow-based thing. So in terms of, making that implicit modeling process better, the developers are definitely looking into that. And that's very much an ongoing kind of project for them. Having only, the implicit modeling tools aren't, haven't been around for that long, and they're definitely putting time and effort into working them up. And especially with the rollout of Studio Geo, there'll be a lot of, looking into the volume outputs with more data. Currently, we only have data from very few clients and our own data. So again, this is why the testing process for us is really important. So we can get these data sets, we can see these differences, so we will end up with much better calculations.
Quick question with the implicit modeling process. You said it's nice and streamlined. I use Leapfrog an awful lot, and we find that even though the implicit modeling will do 90% of the work, you still need to do quite a bit of explicit modeling inside of it. How does that fit into the kind of simplified workflow that you guys have got in Studio Geo?
So currently the workflow, all of the stuff that you see in that dynamic modeling toolbar is basically the implicit kind of side of things. So that's all the stuff that you'll preset your various options and data, let that run. For the explicit stuff, we have all of the explicit tools going to be still available in Studio Geo. So from here, if you do generate, maybe you're looking at some really specific load, it's got a weird shape or something. From here, what you can do is you can actually insert that shape into the model, and then that goes again, you'd have to think about where it lies in relation to the other units. But basically what it'll do is it'll just grab that wireframe and impose it into the model as part of it. So there is all the explicit tools there. We're not going to get rid of anything. So it will be there to some degree. And we'll go into a little bit of that tomorrow if anybody is interested, kind of inserting your own shapes into the model. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. Face mapping, we can add strings. There's a lot of different customization that also goes into these tools. So there is almost a way to do everything. A bit like RM, like someone, I think Jamson said, it's a sandbox. Sometimes there's not necessarily a direct way to do something, but there is almost always a solution that we can get to.